All right, all right. Welcome, folks. So, today I'm walking you through a high level structure that I'm using to build out a guest experience for my brand new video podcast, which is called Midlife Unmuted. If you're an interview based podcaster, so if you're someone who's doing interviews and not just doing solo, right, this is going to be a roadmap for you, hopefully, to creating smoother episodes, more confident guests, and having a more repeatable workflow. So I am super excited and thrilled that I get a chance to be here. I'm actually live in a couple of different places tonight. I'm live on YouTube, I'm live in LinkedIn, and I'm also live over on Substack. So I can see my folks who are Substack folks. I just haven't quite figured out, but I'm this close to figuring out how to showcase your stream or your chat in my stream. So that's coming soon. And as soon as I figure this out, which I will, then I'll be teaching that back to you. So welcome to Stream Like a Boss TV. This is probably your first time here if you're on Substack. And if so, I'm glad you're here and that you made it. And what we do here in this show is we ask that you type in a hashtag newbie if you're brand new and a hashtag OG. If you've been around the block, you've seen us on YouTube, LinkedIn, any of the places, then you're family now. So once you've seen us, that's what you are as an OG. Let me pop it up so that you know exactly what to do. I see some folks that are doing it right now inside of Substack, and I also see some folks that are here on YouTube as well. Now, let me share this. This is not our normal night because usually I go live on Thursdays, but in effort to make sure that I don't skip a week, I wanted to make sure I go live tonight because tomorrow night I have the pleasure and the honor of being able to present on a podcasters panel at the North Dallas Dames event, and I'm going to be in person there. So I can't be in two places at once. Unfortunately, I know AI can make us do a lot of things, but it won't let me multiply myself physically just yet. So here we go. Let me do this because I know we have OGs and we have some newbies in the house. I'm definitely going to acknowledge you and just let you know how much I appreciate you. We'll be popping up your comments, of course, throughout the presentation / live stream. I really call it a live stream. And this is more of a conversation than it is a presentation, right? Because we just have fun and we discuss strategies and we talk a little bit about how you can actually leverage live streaming, but we're also diving deeper into the idea of video podcast because in either one of those cases, you're leveraging video, hopefully. And what my goal is to help you as a service-based entrepreneur or a creator to show up consistently without burning out. So today, for me, this is a big one because I've done guest interviews a lot over the years. And it's something that I absolutely love to do. I had taken a bit of a hiatus over the past quarter or so because one of the things that I discussed with my own personal coach, because coaches need coaches, I discussed with her that, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm continuing to build my brand as a thought leader, not just as a host. But I am going to be introducing a brand new show, which I'll tell you a little bit more about when we come back from our short break. So this is about designing your guest interview process in a way that feels easy, that feels clear, and that feels scalable. And that's what we're going to talk about after this short video. So grab your favorite drink, your notebook, and get comfy because I'm going to see you on the other side of this quick intro. And I'm going to say hello to the folks that I'm seeing in here. So Tiffany's TVscape. I see Resolutionary Media, love it. Cast Ahead, Chris Stone in the house. Learn live streaming with John Lacey, and then Michelle O'Neill, the Educated Natural. There are folks in the house, right? So both on Substack as well as inside of YouTube and LinkedIn. So thank you again for coming. And on the very next slide, the very next scene after this short intro video, while you're taking a few minutes to go get your favorite cup of hydration, your notebook, and your pen, we'll be back and we'll talk a little bit about your guest interview workflow. All right, I'll see you in just a second. Alrighty, folks. So again, today's topic is that we're going to walk through a high-level workflow. Now, it can get a little bit in depth, so I'm not going to have smoke coming out of your ears. I'm not going to do all that, but I'm going to give you a few of my secrets. And I'm going to share a little bit about the workflow that I'm using to build a guest experience for my brand new podcast, which is yet to be released. It's called Midlife Unmuted. So, one of the things that I absolutely want to do with you is to kind of share a few, not only tips, but I'll also demo a few of the things that I'm putting together. Look, there's nothing like creating a podcast, right? This whole interview process can be overwhelming. And for some, it makes you feel like, you know what, I can't do this. I'm just going to give it up. Part of the reason why you're giving up is because you don't have enough structure. Part of the reason that you're not actually able to fill the seat on the other side of the table is that you don't have enough structure, right? So the structure is what I'm really great at. It's like my gift. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But before we go forward, let me make sure I go ahead and say hello to a few folks. Again, let's pop up some comments. I know, again, we've got Cast Ahead Chris Stone OG in the house. What's up? And I've shared a little bit of a hello and a greeting to all the folks that are here on my YouTube channel. I want to be able to do this. And like I said, I'm this close to being able to do so with the Substack folks as well. So what I'm going to do for you all is definitely acknowledge and make sure that you know that I'm here, that I'm paying attention. So let's see who we got over here. We got James Hicks in the house too, and Jim Fuse from Fusion Marketing, Fusion Media. He's actually been doing a lot of live streams on Substack lately too. So I love the space. There are just a couple of little things that we want to make sure we get added to that space as to make it even more feature rich for those of us who are live streamers. You know, somebody was actually writing a post about this. I think it was yesterday, and I commented on it. They said, I really wish that there were a separate space for video because I came here, this person, right, came here more because of the whole writing aspect of it and reading articles and that type of thing. And I agree with the person. I agreed with what they wrote because I love that people can learn and can consume information however they choose to in a space like Substack. You've got written articles, you've got images, you've got quotes, you've got chat and thread, but you also have video, you have audio posts if you choose to. And so that is the beauty of the space. Now, YouTube, I love it because it is dedicated to video. I know they're adding some new features and some things are going to be coming up soon, from what I understand. But I love that it is also video rich. Now, the thing that I love specifically about video, and I want to share this because I want you to understand why the tips I'm about to share with you matter. The reason why I love video the most is because it really gives you that 3D essence, right? It gives you this connection with people that's not just about them hearing your voice, which of course, you know, that's great too. It's not just about them reading some text and reading, you know, the content, but it's also about them feeling the emotion through the camera and seeing that you're passionate about what you talk about. Whenever people come to my live streams, they know that I'm in it to win it. I'm not in it just to be here, just to share some content in hopes that you may go buy something, which that's nice too. But I'm here because I actually care about sharing the information that I'm sharing. And I feel like you and I have created this like family connection because I've got a lot of folks here that have been here with me for a while. I've been doing this whole live streaming thing for some time. The reason why I think that video podcasting has probably gets a little bit more attention when you talk about that is because the podcasting field, that category, when you hear the word podcast, it's portable. It's not just something where you have to sit at a screen and consume that information. You have options, much like I talked about as it relates to Substack. So why these tips matter? When it comes to your guest, if you're going to have guests on your show, if you're going to have people that are actually creating space or content with you because they're like your sidekick, right? Then what you want to do is to make sure that they show up at their best as well. So if your guest feels unsure, if they feel like if the conversation itself feels stiff, if the final product is just not going to land the way that it could. But with a strong guest experience up front, your interviews are going to flow better, you're going to feel more natural, and you're going to require a lot less editing later. There are some decisions you're going to want to make, which we're going to talk about. I've got a whole list of things that I want you to write down in terms of questions and answers that you need to really kind of think about as it relates to your video podcast and the flow if you're going to be doing interview style. And especially for new podcasters, this is going to save you some stress. It's going to save you time. If you're experienced, it's going to make the process a lot more sustainable. So if you have ever felt rushed or awkward during an interview with a guest, I want you to put a raised hand in the chat. And there's no shame here because I've been there too. So put a raised hand emoji in the chat if this is you. Now, there's 3 specific sections or ways that I'm going to talk about this topic. The first way I want to talk about it is the pre-interview guest experience. So we're going to focus on that first. We're going to talk a little bit about what to do ahead of time. I'm also going to share with you a couple of the different assets. By assets, I mean content, documents, and things that I've put in place for my own workflow. But then I'm also going to lead you into the structured interview experience. So we'll talk about pre-interview first. We're going to talk about the structured interview experience. I'm going to give you some tips and some ideas on what to think about and decisions you need to make if you're doing an interview style podcast. And then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about tools that will help you to fill your seats. Now, as I'm sharing these things with you, I'm sharing them with you from the perspective that I personally am right now in the mode of creating a whole new podcast because I'm in a different season of life. It's not that I don't love Stream Like a Boss TV, and I will absolutely continue to be here with you on Thursdays. So make sure, of course, you do raise your hand if you're looking to make sure that you see me on Thursdays. And I know tonight's Wednesday. We're doing a special night, but if you would like to continue to see and to learn strategies like what we're talking about as it relates to content marketing with video, I'm here for it. I'm here for that. But I also felt like there was this nagging thing. There was this thing that was telling me, you need to be speaking about this other side. You need to be talking about these other things. And so I'm in a season of life that I felt like, you know what? I'm not muted anymore. I'm in this space. And that could be dangerous, y'all. For those of you who are of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. It could be dangerous, but it's also something that could be a really positive thing. If you've ever felt like, especially as an introvert, and even if you're not, if you've ever felt like you were on mute because you had to fit a certain mold, you had to fit into somebody's box, you had to talk a certain way so that you could accomplish certain things, you'll get what I'm talking about. And I just feel like now is the time for us to be unmuted. So this particular podcast that I have this idea for and that I'm actually putting into fruition, like it's coming into focus right now, is for creators that are over 40 who are in the process of really like doing it big. Like the content that they're creating and the things that they're putting out into the world are making an impact. And I want to show this to those of you who are thinking that it's too late. So that's the focus. I had to give you that so that I can make sure that you knew what we're talking about. Let me put everything on Do Not Disturb right there because I got a couple of pings. We're supposed to do that before time. I know. I get it. I do see these hands waving. What? Okay. And I see a couple of questions. So let me pop those up in the comments and then we're going to dive into segment number 1. So let's pop these up. First of all, I know we saw a couple of OGs in the house. Love it, love it, love it. Tiffany's TV Scape in the house. Aloha, Prema. It's wonderful to see you from LinkedIn. I love it. What is the YouTube link? Okay, so the best way I can tell you, because you know those things are long, Prema, go to youtube.com/@Tanya Smith, and it should be the first one. It'll pop right up for you because I'm live. All right. And then I see Resolutionary Media is giving me the pink waving sign. I know that's right. Hey. Speaking my language, I see Marcia Baker over on Substack is saying #OG. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. One of these days, we're going to be able to pull up comments from my folks. Alicia T says, you know what? I owe you something. There's something I need to pop up on here, and I will be doing it. I've got a video clip of you from Podfest that I'm going to make sure that I share. And I have just put it aside, but I'm pulling it back out because it was so good. Okay, y'all. So look, let's dive into the content. Let's talk about this. the pre-interview guest experience. Now, as I talk through these different notes and things that I want to share with you, I'm probably going to have a few stories, right? Because something's always going to pop up as a recent experience or a past experience that I hope will help you. And there is one that recently happened that I'm going to share. I'm going to take a deep breath and share it because the person may be watching right now, probably is watching. But here's what I want you to really think about, okay? Because it's not a slam on anyone. What I want to share with you is that as you are inviting guests into your space, so as I'm thinking about Midlife Unmuted, the number one thing I'm thinking about, actually, there's two things that really are at the top, the tippy top. One is I want to make sure that the guest is going to have an amazing experience. But secondly, I want to make sure that the people on the other side of the screen are also having an amazing experience and that you're getting what you want to get out of it. And that I'm also creating the expectations right up front as to what it's going to be about. So as you think about that, you think about what I just said, as I share these tips with you, this is the place that I'm coming from. It's about an experience. It's not just, hey, let me do an interview so that I can have this great podcast. It's let me create an experience, right, for the people that are on the other side of this screen. So point number one, as we talk about your pre-interview guest experience. And if you do have questions, pop them into the chat. You can put a Q in front of them, but even if you don't, if you miss that, that's okay. I'll definitely be making sure that I get you. I'll go back and review the comments in a little bit. But there's a couple of things that I want to break down because here's how I'm setting up my own guests for success before we hit record. Okay. The first thing that I want to tell you that we're going to do is we're going to have a guest welcome email. So, and actually that's not even the first. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a vetting process. Now, for me, because I am creating this new podcast, these things are fresh in my mind. So I think I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's do this. So a couple of things that I had to do. I'm going to share my screen in just a second, but let me get it pulled up for you. And this, I think, is really kind of key for the pre-interview process. I want you to be thinking about how am I setting this up so that the guest knows that I'm a professional. They know what type of show they're going to be a part of. They feel good about that. Before anything, we both figure out whether or not this is a fit. Okay. So there are two paths for people to be on the show. And this is something I learned from doing Stream Like a Boss because I had a previous audio podcast as well. I had previous experiences where I realized too late that the person was probably not right for the show. Okay. And let me do this real quick. Hold on one second. All right. I felt like I was in the dark for a reason. So I had to make sure Alexa turned on that light. Let's do this. I'm going to show you first the request, the invite, because again, two paths. One path is me inviting people specifically that I know I want these people to be a part of the show. The second path would be people who are interested and they happen to find out about what I'm doing, but I haven't vetted them in any way. So there's two paths. Okay. So as we're thinking this through, I want you to think about that. How are people actually finding out about your show so that you can invite them or they can pre-qualify themselves? Okay, so I'm going to share with you first and foremost this quick little email. Let me do my screen share real quick so you can see what I'm pointing out. So this is an email and I use a tool called QuickPage, okay? Here, I'll pop it up so I can share with you what I'm doing. So when I am actually inviting somebody because I personally and professionally know them and I want them to be on the show, I put together a simple email that explains, hey, this is why I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out because I feel like you could be a good fit. And here's some things that you need to know about the episodes that I'm going to be creating, right? Now, one of the things that I noticed already off the bat that I probably should have created or indicated here is a deadline to respond. But honestly, I don't know necessarily that I need that because I believe that this is going to be an ongoing opportunity. And I had a handful of hand-picked people that I sent this to. Additionally, besides me sending the wording, I also shared with them a short video. Now, the video is under a minute long because people ain't got time, right, to waste time. So a less than a minute long video where I'm sharing with them information about the podcast and why I chose them, because these are my handpicked people, right? And then I even have the little image that represents what the podcast looks like. Now, the reason for this and why I'm putting this together in this email form is because I want to make sure they know the quality and the caliber of what this show is right off the bat. So even if they've only met me once or twice, when they see this, boom, she's a professional, she's organized, she's got this stuff ready, right? So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing that I'm thinking about, and this relates to both people who I am inviting because I handpicked them, but it may also be people that just happen to find me and happen to find my page, although I don't make this page public. And there's reasons for that. Here's the second thing that I'm going to show you that I put together. And I'll explain as we go through the reasons and the rationale behind the why. Now, this is my Midlife Unmuted guest registration form. And so not only is it the form, but it also, again, is a page that shares even more detail. And as a matter of fact, the video email that I've shared with them leads the people I'm handpicking, it leads them to this page, right? It leads them to this page so that they can get even more detail about the type of questions I'll probably be asking. They can see former interviews so that they can gauge my style and see how other people showed up for their interviews. So I have a whole entire playlist here of amazing people that I've interviewed in the past, which again, all of this is speaking to my brand and is speaking to my ability to really showcase a spotlight on them so that they know what to expect. Okay. Now, if you're brand new to this thing called podcasting, if you're brand new to interviewing people, I get it. You may not have that established credibility yet, and that's okay. But what you're still going to want to do is put something together that appears to be a package that shows them what you're capable of, right? So even if you've been doing solo shows, you want them to see this is what I'm preparing for. You're already setting the stage for a positive experience, right? I also create a guest registration form that has my guest agreement where they can sign and make sure they're clear on what they're consenting to. It provides spaces for them to add their information. So all of this is in a specific flow. And then once they've completed this form, they are directly taken then to the next step. Now, let me ask you, because you're thinking about this with me as you're creating your own flow, what do you think the next step is? I want you to type it into the chat if you know what the next step is. So they filled out the form. Now what? Now, there's a couple of ways that this could go, and I'm going to take you to where it goes for me, okay? I'm literally walking you through the initial part of my podcast flow so that you see exactly what this looks like. Now, as I'm thinking through a couple of things that I want to make sure that I'm doing, I want to make sure that I'm clear about what the show is about. I want them to know, yes or no, this is for them, so that neither one of us is wasting each other's time. And I also want to make sure that they are aware of what is required of them. And so all of those things are part of this flow that I'm sharing so far. Now, if you do have questions, pop them in the chat. I'm looking and watching for questions and for comments, okay? Let's go ahead. I'm going to take you now to the next step because I see nobody has quite guessed yet what the next step is. You're not going to be wrong. It's okay. because if you're creating your own flow, you may have a different thought about what the next step would be. For me, here's what I decided, because I'm all about efficiency and saving time. So if that person has taken the time to complete the form, they're not guaranteed a spot, mind you, because there could be people, and I've seen this happen, I've had this happen. There could be people, yes, I love it. Okay, so Valerie Hatcher, ding, ding, ding. I'm going to give you some kudos in just a second. There could be a situation where people have filled out the form that truly are not qualified, but they just see the show and they're like, yeah, I love this show and I want to be on it. Doesn't matter if I'm not really a match, right? And so you need to have a process in place that is professional and that allows you to decline if you need to, okay? So you can do it one of two ways. You can, at that point, say, okay, so this person has filled out this form. They're not going to go any further until I review the form. We're going to stop right there. What I do is one of two things. If I don't know who the person is, it is going to suggest and recommend a screening call if I haven't personally invited them. But if I have, and normally about 85% of the time this is the case, this is the next thing that I do. Let me pop it up. The next thing I do is I take them to a booking page, okay? And this allows the person who has followed the registration process to now go ahead and book their date so that they can get on my schedule, okay? This gives them that ability to be able to go ahead and book the date. Now, here's the catch. The catch is this, because Valerie did put up the screening call. Yes, okay? So it could be a screening call if the person is somebody I don't know, and I feel like based on the information they filled out in the form, I'm interested in talking with them more. So I will extend to them an opportunity to do a coffee chat. But if they're not quite ready for that, there's still another way that I can vet them out, meaning they're going to go ahead and book right here. But once they book, it's going to take them to a page that says, hey, thanks so much for applying. We're going to take a look and we'll get back to you within the next 48 hours to confirm the date. If we're not ready to confirm the date or we feel that we're not a match, we'll reach out to you and let you know. That gives me the ability, and I use a tool called Traft, in case you didn't catch that, Trafft. If I'm not quite ready or I don't feel like it's a good fit, I've got a ready-to-go email, and in my process behind Traft, it will tell them, this does not appear to be a good fit at this time. We're not going to go ahead and confirm the booking, but thank you so much. Maybe we can consider you for a future date and time or something like that, right? And sometimes I'll even take it upon myself to add a little more personnel note and give more specifics. I don't do that every time because, again, efficiency, right? But I'm never going to be rude about it. I'm always going to make sure that I help the person understand we're just not a fit based on what you've entered. Because in the questionnaire, in the registration form that you saw, which I didn't go through at length, just for sake of time, there are specific questions that ask the person about their background, about where I can find them online. And I literally, myself and my team member, do go and we take a look so that we can make sure we've vetted the person properly. But the majority of the time, because that page is not made public, although it is here tonight, right? Because it's not public. I don't have a whole bunch of people, a barrage of people that are going through that I don't already know. Now, if somebody reaches out and they say, hey, I'm really interested in being on your show, and it goes through me or it goes through my support email, absolutely, coffee chat is going to be in order if, based on what they've shared with me and what I've seen of their presence online, I want to talk further. But you've got to set clear boundaries. So do you see what I'm talking about when I say that there's some work involved with the pre-interview process? But let's just go ahead and say that the person has been confirmed, okay? So if they have been confirmed, you're thinking about a couple of things that you want to make sure you do. Now, again, this is the pre-interview process. We're still there. You want to be thinking about, okay, so I've shared the guest information, or I've shared with them what the show is going to be about. They're now confirmed. The next step is that they're going to get an email that shares with them the preparation process. So this links them to another video email that I'm going to share with you right now. Let's see. And actually, I don't have a video email yet. I've got to redo the one for Midlife Unmuted, but let me share it with you. Yes, and let me pop this up because I believe that this is so true. Yes, not everyone is a match. Create a list of absolutes. Absolutely. Put the criteria in place. Make a list of the criteria for the people that you know are a great match. And that's part of what I did. If you didn't notice or see it, that's part of what I had on my guest registration page. On my page, I talk about this is what looks like a good fit, right? To hopefully help you to self-qualify. If it's right for you, it is. And if it's not, it's not. And I don't mind being honest and saying that because it's important for my credibility and my brand when I present you on camera for us to be a fit. Otherwise, the audience will feel that we're not a fit. We're not a match. We don't have a vibe. That's another reason why I also love to do the screening call that Valerie mentioned. The coffee chats with people who I really don't know well help me to see, do we vibe well on camera, right? Because if we don't, that's going to show up on the interview too. Okay, so next thing, let me share this screen share. Okay, so this right here is after they've been confirmed, right? So now I have put together a prep checklist that says, thanks, we have a date. You should be getting a separate email. This is because they've been confirmed. You're going to get a separate email that confirms the date and time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why I'm able to do this is because that separate email is going to be more personalized and have their specific interview date and time, whereas this letter is something that is available to anyone, right? So I don't have to keep redoing it. And it has all the specific information that they need to know about the types of questions we're going to ask, how to get ready from a tech standpoint. And then there's something I do want to point out because Prema actually put this in there in the chat that I'm going to pop up, but tech details, okay? Now, I previously had an even more in-depth checklist for folks to make sure that they know exactly how to prepare. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure they knew to do is, first of all, to make sure that they're using a computer, not a phone, that they're going to be in a well-lit space, that they're going to use a microphone that has good quality sound, that they're going to have headphones to avoid any echoing, right? And that they're going to close any unused tabs to avoid any connection issues. So internet. They want to make sure they have a strong internet. Now, there have been times when I've done, and here's what I do in order to really reinforce that. Let me say this, and I'm going to pop up Prema's note too. Yep, she offered guest equipment. Yeah, one of the things I do in the registration process, which you probably didn't catch because I just flew through this, but one of the questions is, will you need a practice interview? I asked that question because even the most professional, the people that I know, right, even they may just want a little bit of extra time with me to kind of set up and make sure that their equipment and my equipment are jiving, right? Because I'm using Ecamm Live, or I might be using Riverside FM for pre-recorded, which we'll talk about in a second. Whatever I'm using, I want to make sure that they're going to show up and look really great. And so I offer that as one of the questions in the questionnaire. Would you like a practice interview? And the answers are, yes, I think I could use that. No, I'm pretty comfortable on camera, which most of the time I know who is and who isn't. And then maybe, and I provide them with a separate link that allows them to book a 15-minute call where we can check their tech. Okay. I also, ahead of the show, and this is in all the email confirmations and reminders, say, hey, remember to show up at least 15 minutes ahead of the call. If we're going to be live, particularly, which again, that's coming into your decisions in a second. If we're going to be live, I want to make sure that we work out any glitches ahead of us jumping on live. There have been times where I've had to cancel or say, hey guys, it's just me because we had a few tech issues and we're going to reschedule so and so later, right? So give yourself the cushion in the room to make sure that the tech is good and that you're going to not only show up great for yourself, but the other person, you want them to look good and to shine as well, right? Okay, let's double check a couple of things now. I see some comments in here and I want to pop those up. Yes, people need to prepare differently. The more comfortable they are, the better the interview. That's right. So I give them options. I'm like, hey, do you want this option? I'm here for you. I can help you ahead of time instead of you waiting last minute. And they love that. Dr. Vibe says, greetings. Sorry that I'm late. Hey, I got access to broadcast on Substack. Yes. Congrats. There's that positive, motivating energy I see in your photo. Learn live streaming with John. Lacey said, I did a practice interview with Tanya because the last time I was on eCam, the audio was a disaster. It was fine, John. We did so great. I loved our interview time. But he's right. There could be any number of reasons where you're like, you know what, let me take advantage of this practice interview. But it's something that I offer because, look, you as the host, you know your system and your equipment and you know your setup. But the other person, you want them to feel comfortable and confident when they get on, especially if they're going to be on live with you. And so do what you can to prepare. Now, all of the emails that I send are succinct and provide exactly the information I want people to know. But I also am big on sending a reminder with a simple link back to the page that I showed you that has the prep. I ask them to bookmark it in case they need to go back and review the standard questions. But I also in that email say, hey, just so you know, if you're a little bit more experienced with interviewing, I may go a little bit off script, right? And I'll say that in my video, my short video that I do for them. I may go a little bit off script, but just follow. I'm going to follow you and I'm going to make sure that I'm going with the flow of what the audience is asking for. These are things that help you to be a better host and that help your guest to be a better guest. Okay, if anybody has questions or comments, make sure you check it out, okay? Let's see. I will be joining Substack because of you. Hey, all right, come on over. I'm at streamlikeaboss.substack.com. Let me check over here on my Substack folks too. If you are on Substack and you're watching, I can see your comments. I'm just not able to share them yet, but I'm working on a workaround to do that. Trust me. Chris Stone, there's nobody that has better processes than you, Tanya. It's because I'm a nerd. I just own that now. I think everything through. I used to think it was to my detriment, but honestly, it is what has kept me in business for so long. It is what has sustained what I do. And so I do love sharing this kind of stuff with folks. So I hope you're enjoying it and that you're taking notes. All right, y'all, let's go into the next segment. So as I mentioned, you want to get your person ready with the guest registration process. You want to make sure they know the expectations, whatever that looks like for you. It may not look exactly like my process, but you're letting people know. One thing that the booking calendar does is it keeps you two from going back and forth with, hey, when do you want to come on? Hey, I'm not really sure. I'm really busy. Hey, look, when I get those, if somebody invites me to a show, I want to know exactly what dates and times they have available. I don't want to have to be like, oh, I don't know. Well, maybe I could do it 3 months in the future. Let's be clear so that you can have that pathway that doesn't paralyze the person on the other end. So give them as many details as you can. If you want them to be a guest, give them what you can, arm them and equip them with the information that they need so they can make a decision and so that they know that you are confident and you are going to lead them down a solid path. So the preparation form helps them with that. The welcome email that you send them, you need to think about what that's going to be. And again, the optional pre-call, right? Whether it's the coffee chat because you're getting to know them or it's the practice tech check. But those things are all a part of my pre-interview process. And yes, I do think everything through because I want to make sure that you're going to have a good time that you know everything you need to know, and that I'm going to have a good time too, but the people on the other end that are watching us are having a good time as well. So win, win, win all around is what we're creating with this process. Okay. If you got questions on that, let me know. Let's go into segment 2. And so segment 2 is about the structured interview experience, as if I haven't given you enough structure already. I know, right? Okay, structured interview experience. So let me pull my notes for that so that you have those. Okay. When we talk about the structuring of your interview, couple of things that I'm going to share with you. One, I kick off with a why this matters. I don't know if you've paid attention to me doing this, but I do this with almost every live stream I do. To me, it is important to help people understand why they're here. Like, you're here, you're watching this live stream. Why? Why should the topic I'm talking about matter to you? So what I like to do at the very opening is to explain why it matters. So when you have your guest coming on, you want to explain to your audience, this is why this guest is on my show. This is why, and this is what I want to celebrate with all of you, is that we're here to talk about X, Y, and Z. Now, the catch is you've vetted the person up front because you know that they truly are a fit. Here's where you can fall down. You can fall down because you're trying to be too nice and you're not setting boundaries. I can say this because I did it myself. What happens is you have a successful podcast or live stream show. Your friend or your friend's friend, right, reaches out and you're like, okay, you can be on the show. You haven't done proper vetting. Or maybe you did and you still said yes, even though what you told your audience your show was about has nothing to do with what you're going to talk about with this person. Trust me, I've done it so many times. If this is you, I want you to think about this. Has this ever happened to you? Because if it has, it's okay. It's now we've learned from it and we have grown from it. Now we're making better decisions and we're making sure that everything about our brand and what we said and promised to the audience we were going to talk about is clearly aligned. So you must be careful that you're aligning. And when you are aligned, it's easier for you to explain and to share with people why they should be celebrating that you have this person on your show, because the person is perfectly aligned with the topics and the things that you talk about and that you promised your audience your show would be about. So introducing them by kicking off with a why this guest is here, to me, that's a critical part of the guest structured interview. The second thing is I think about all of the topics that I talk about solo, but as well as with guests nowadays, because I didn't used to do this. With your guest, it should be a part of your content pillars. So if you haven't spent time, and you really need to think about this, if you haven't spent time doing this and you need help, reach out. Okay, reach out so we can do a discovery call. We can do some coaching. We can work on this for you. But ultimately, you need to understand what your content pillars are. What's foundational to the business brand that you've created? Because the topics that you're talking about with that guest should probably fit in there and complement those. So they're not always a fixed script. I could tell you, for instance, one of the things that I want to talk about with the Midlife Unmuted podcast is origin stories. I want to talk about lessons learned. My focus for Midlife Unmuted is different from somebody else's show who might be talking about seasoned, entrepreneurs. My focus is on seasoned entrepreneurs and creators who have already had success with the content, because my purpose is very specific. The purpose is that I want you as the audience member watching the show to gain insight and knowledge from what that person is sharing about their journey and how they were successful. So if I'm bringing on people onto the show that aren't quite successful yet, but they're making it, they're hustling, that's not the best fit, because I'm not doing what I set out to do. It's sometimes just that mental shift that you have to make to ensure that you're giving the people what you said you were going to give them. Your show may be all about journeys and storytelling, which is perfect because anybody who fits into that specific area could be a guest. But get clear so that when you do talk about questions and answers with your interview guests, you're giving them flexibility, but you're also doing it within the pillars that you've promised. The third and final thing in the structured interview process is this. Okay? Another thing that I have just horribly failed at times in the past. I have. I'm so much better at this now. But if you go back a few years, maybe like 4 or 5 years back when I was doing some interview shows, you will find that there are people who were just kind of going off the rails. Yeah, we found that we were a match and it was all good ahead of time. And then when he got on the show, it was not good. So you have to be prepared as the host and the facilitator of the conversation to bring them back to what you said you were going to talk about. It can go off the rails, and in some cases that can be a good thing, but you need to make sure that you're in control of the flow. So the structured interview process, be confident, know what you came there to do, make sure that your person understands, your guest understands what you came there to do so that you don't disappoint the audience. Okay? Check that. Now, as a seasoned instructional designer, coach, trainer, all those things, I've done all those things in my life. It has been helpful to have those experiences under my belt. You may not have that experience, but you absolutely just go through the fire and learn from it and be prepared to help people turn the conversation back to where it needs to go, because you ultimately are the person who is the guide. You're the compass. Okay. All right. Let me check and see what kind of comments I got on that one, because I know there's been times I was afraid to say no, but I realized it wasn't authentic to myself or my audience. Yes, exactly. So we're not going to be afraid anymore. Fatima said that alignment, and I hope that I'm saying it correctly, Fatima or Fatima, make sure you let me know because I want to respect your name. She said this alignment is so important. Be selective so you have better quality. I recently stopped doing pre-calls, but still give the space before the actual recording. I will do a separate pre-call if they need. That's right. And that's exactly what I shared. It's not for everybody, but you absolutely need to make the decision based on how your process flows. Let me pull up a couple of other ones. This is a longer one, so I'm going to switch over to the comments page. Let's see. I feel very time poor, and something that frustrates me is when people talk to interesting people about interesting things. I need a better sense. I know. John, here's the thing. Something that was said just a second ago is everything is not for everybody. I get it. And I'm with you. That is me too. My personality is such that I'm like, let's go, let's go. If you said this, then that's what you're going to do, because I'm all about committing to doing the things that I say I'm going to do. And I expect that from other people. Harsh or not, I don't know. But there are other people who absolutely love the, hey, let's just go off the rails and talk about anything and everything. And I love people get to watch and consume whatever way they choose. Right? So if that is the type of show you have and you've set that expectation, then by all means, let it be a variety show. But also, if that's not what you said it was going to be, like you need to maybe go and rewrite the description. Just set the expectation and let people know what to expect, right? Okay. Yes. You're funny. I see that. She said, you could say it either way, or your royal, I'm just going to call you your royal highness from now on. Every time I see your comment, that's what I'm going to do. Let me check over here. Yes. So Dr. Stacy Moore said, right. She's over on Substack. Yes. Okay. Those are the things that I want you to make sure you watch out for in our tip number 2. Let's go to tip number 3. Before I do that, there is something I did want to go through with you. Let me see if I have it. No, I'm going to do this last. It's the questions I want you to make sure you write down to ask yourself if you're making decisions about your video podcast. But I will do that after we do segment 3, okay? Segment 3, tools to fill seats. So you might be wondering, and I probably could do a whole different show on this. So I'm going to touch on this so that we can get into the questions. I won't spend a lot of time on this because we can do another show on this. But if you're thinking about, okay, well, so Tanya, you're doing this whole new show. How in the world are you going to get your guests? Like, how are you creating a space to actually get guests? How you're attracting people to the show? Well, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to start, I have already started with my personal address book, because over time, as a business owner and as someone who has, connected with a large number of people in my network, I know certain people that fit the bill because I've gotten clear on the criteria. So I know people that fit the criteria, and I've reached out to them first because we need to get a couple of shows up and running first and ready to produce before we launch the podcast. Okay. So that's where I started. Another thing that I'm using is AI tools, which I can't get into now because, again, for sake of time, but there are certain AI tools and AI bots. I've actually created a custom GPT around outreach, right? To help me to locate, identify guests, and do research on guests. So AI tools is the second way. A third way is I'm actually using a service called Podmatch with Alex Sanfilippo and his wife, Alicia Sanfilippo. They've created an amazing platform for us to be able to get matched up with other people. So Podmatch, I think, is like $6 per month as a host who is looking to find people. You just connect your RSS feed from your podcast, create a profile, and then you sign up for the monthly subscription, and then you're able to write in detail. They take you through a detailed process, exactly what your podcast and your show is going to be about. Now, I'm not yet signed up for this particular show, but I was signed up with Podmatch for a different show. Okay. And the process is super clean. I love the way that it works, and it gives you the ability to really be able to connect with people who maybe you otherwise would never have known or met. So that's pretty cool. And you can still implement or use your process the way that I'm talking about here tonight, or you can leverage the process that they have in place for you. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about in segment 3. But here's where I want to get into the key questions. You will want a notepad and a pen, or at least to take a screenshot of what I'm about to share, because these are decisions you need to make. And thank you so much, Prema, for putting in my Substack link. Let me pop this up. You are awesome. This is where you can follow me at streamlikeaboss.substack.com. If you're on Substack, what's up, Substack people? Thank you. Okay, here's the questions. So I'm going to pop this up. I have it in a PDF format. It should show up well, but if it doesn't, I'll make sure you have access to it. Okay, so here's what we're doing. What I want you to be thinking about when it comes to setting up your show, okay? These are key decisions. These are things that you need to decide on. Let me move myself over there. Key things that you need to think about before you go and start booking people, okay? So hear me out on this, okay? Question number 1, will your interviews be live or pre-recorded? This matters, y'all, because there are certain people who could be guests, but they're a little afraid of the whole live streaming process, and they've never done it before. Sometimes people feel a little bit more comfortable doing the pre-recorded because they know that you can edit out things that maybe they just didn't mean to say, that were accidental flubs, right? So you need to decide, is it going to be live or pre-recorded? Because that will shift and change your process a bit as well. Now, previously, I was doing primarily live stream because it's just fun to do to me, right? I love live. But what I've decided for this coming show, for the Midlife Unmuted show, is that one is going to be a pre-recorded 15 to 20 minute show. I will continue to do my Stream Like a Boss TV lives on Thursdays, and the pre-recorded guest interview series will be different. You get a choice. You get to make the decision yourself. Okay. There are pros and cons to all of that, but that's a question you need to answer. You want to also answer the question, is this going to be video? Is it going to be just audio? Or am I going to do video and audio for the podcast? Because we have options. And this, again, will shift what you do after your production, okay? Which we won't even get into tonight because we will not have time. But this is something you need to think about. Will you use a multi-camera system or setup, or are you going to keep it simple? When I say multicam, let me see if I can kind of give you a feeling of what I'm talking about. You've seen me doing this throughout tonight's show. I hate right now that it's doing this big, like in my face. That's my fault because I don't have it on normal tracking. Let me see. Yeah, it's not pulling back. Right? But are you going to have multiple cameras and are you going to be doing all of that? Or are you going to just do a single camera here and then have the other person just have a single? Like, what are you doing? You need to think about that. Now, it's a lot of work if you're switching cameras and all of those things. That's more work. So maybe not so much unless you're skilled at that and you've gotten yourself in a place where you feel comfortable with doing that. Okay. Another question is, how long will each episode be? Like, what am I going to do with the episodes? Are they going to be 20 minutes? Are they going to be an hour long? Is it like 10-minute long? What's the length? So think about the length of your episodes, because that's also something that you clearly want to communicate to the person because they have things to do and a life to live. Right? So don't tell them it's a 15-minute interview and then you turn up having them like on for an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's a bit much for somebody who was prepared to come in for 15 minutes. So you need to be able to communicate that to them. Okay. Are you asking guests to share the episode? And if so, if you're asking them to share, how are you equipping them? Are you sharing with them some ideas on how they can actually promote? Like, are you giving them, hey, here's some graphics, here's a little blurb? Like, what are you doing? And if you're not doing any of that, are you telling them, hey, I won't have anything? You're not expected? Or are you doing it like a little hybrid? Here's one thing you can do is you can say, I'm going to tag you. So as part of your guest registration process, you ask them, which I ask them for their best profile. Like, is it Instagram, LinkedIn, or where do you like to be tagged, right? So that way, when you're promoting it, you just instantly tag them and it makes it easier for them to share. What are you going to do so that they can share it too? You need to make sure you know and you've thought that through. Let's see. I think I might have missed one. Will there be sponsorships or promotions built into the conversation? So are you allowing them to promote? And if so, are you asking them ahead of time, even if it's 15 minutes ahead of time, right? In your pre-call, what is it that they're going to promote? Are you allowing that? What I usually will ask is there a link that you would like for me to share with the people? And sometimes what I'll get, which I think is cool, some guests will say, yeah, I want to give them a discount code for them to be able to join my such and such, right? Or to be able to go and download my whatever, which is great. Love it. And if not, that's okay. I'll usually ask them for their website or URL to wherever they are seen the most so that people can follow. And then let's see. Will you allow guests to review anything or edit anything before the release? I usually don't do that. I ask them to trust me that I'm going to make it look good, but that's something you can ask about. Are you using a release form or an appearance agreement? Now, I am not an attorney, so let me say this really clearly. I'm not an attorney, but I do play in the space because of what I have, my experience in a corporate role. And so what I would suggest to you is that it's very important for you to upfront have a clear written understanding. And a good person to follow for this is Gordon Firemark. Have an understanding of what is okay in terms of sharing of that person's likeness and their voice and all of those things. Because What can happen, and I've recently heard some stories that were like nightmare stories from people where they interviewed someone and then later on down the road, they had kind of a conflict or butted heads, and the person was like, take my content down months later. And you don't want to run into that. So I'm going to suggest anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, just cover yourself. And if you need to contact or connect with an attorney, or you need to go get attorney related advice, because I am not one. Gordon Firemark is a good one. So some type of podcasting or live streaming agreement is good for a guest, a release that allows you to have ownership of the content in perpetuity, meaning that you can continue to share this even if at some point down the road you two are not, friends or whatever might be happening. But be clear about what your expectations are there. And then finally, here's the last point. How are you going to organize all of this? Which we could, again, do a whole different show about, because videos and audios too take up a lot of space, and you want to be able to find your episodes when the time comes. So I'm going to encourage you to ask yourself, what are the tools that you're going to use to organize your content? That is so important. One of the things that I use several tools, right? But one of them is ClickUp. You can use Airtable. Previously, I used Airtable. I've used Smart Suite, right? But you need a way to organize your episodes and all of the content that goes with that. That could include thumbnails, any type of graphics that are promotional graphics, copies of that agreement that I mentioned to you, the registration form. Because I'm using something called Fill Out, it automatically captures all of that into a database for me, so I can just export an Excel spreadsheet over into my stuff. But do something to make sure that you have adequate organization of all this stuff, because the more people that you interview, the more content you got to keep up with, you or your team member, right? Okay, it's time for questions. So if you have questions, before I do the recap, I want to try to cover those. And I'm going to check in on you all and see how you're doing. If you're over on Substack, let me know you're there. The only way I know is if I can scan in the Substack chat. And if not, I'm checking real quick here on, oh, thank you so much. Prima is the bomb. She is like in here putting my links for me, which I absolutely am thankful for, because I did not set these links up ahead of time. Boo. But let me go ahead and pop this in here. I'm going to put up some comments. If you've got questions, just reach out. Okay. One of my keys when I'm interviewing someone or a group of people is that I tell them we are doing a conversation, not an interview. Absolutely. Let's see. Cast ahead, Chris Stone. Oh, I did put that up earlier. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Some of these I've already popped up before, so let me scroll down a little bit. Yes, sometimes your guest might have a squirrel syndrome. It's true. You have to bring them back to the subject matter. I know. I guess that's the difference between live and pre-recorded. You can edit the tangents out in pre-recorded. Yes, but I want to do as little editing as I possibly can. So definitely stay on top of those conversations as you're having them and draw them back to where they need to be. Substack.com. I'm at streamlikeaboss.substack.com. Thank you. Your Highness says, periodic solo episodes can be beneficial. I have. Anything that is too repetitive can get boring. Absolutely. So think about how you can actually throw a little bit of variety into your shows. I love it. I love it. Thank you for subscribing at Substack. I appreciate you. I love this, Tanya. This video really should be shared in podcast groups and watched by anyone starting a podcast. Thank you. This is actually, I'm going to be talking about podcasting tips tomorrow in the Dames on their panel for podcasters. So I'm super excited about that. The mind shifter is facts. Thank you all for subscribing. Let's see. I had a guest who was so excited to be on the live show that they just hung around just to chat to me for another hour after it ended, which was fun. I know. John, I need a nap too sometimes. because, too much peopling can be a lot. Podmatch is at podmatch.com. Absolutely. Thank you, Prima. You are awesome. I use Podio to organize everything. It's awesome and a time saver. Love, 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 love. And as someone who has done over 5,000 live interviews and live conversations online, Tanya is on point. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, now it's time for me to do some recapping. So let's do some recaps. Here's my key takeaways without going through the entire presentation because we're over our hour. But I hope it's been helpful. It's been fun for me. It's always fun for me to be able to come and hang out with you guys. The first thing is to think about the welcome sequence. Like, how are you welcoming people in, and how are you setting expectations and pre-vetting that you have the right guest for the show? And how are you gently letting them down if it's not, right? Think about that process as well, because you don't have to say yes to everyone. You just don't. You need to set positive boundaries so that you all are winning. Remember, it's a win-win-win. And if somebody's not winning, everybody's losing. It's like having a three-legged stool. If one of the legs falls, then everything else is kind of off. Same thing. Use a short prep form to guide the flow. So give people expectations and help them to know this is what you can prepare for. In order for you to really show up at your best, here's some things that you need to know about how the show is going to go. That sets them up for success. Structure with flexibility wins the day. We talked about this, and a couple of things that the commenters, our chat family was talking about, I think fit into this as well. Yes, I love that we have the structure, and hopefully you've gained some insights. I know I'm super structured. I am that person, and you may not be as structured as I am. But I think that the beauty of having some structure and thinking through your process, plus being flexible as you need to, that's the formula that wins the day. That's going to set everybody up again for success, right? Consider how you fill your guest seats. So you do need to think about, if you're starting out with a new podcast, how am I going to fill seats? Like, where am I going to get these people, right, that are sitting in the guest chair? Because you're not asking everybody, because everybody is not for your show. Unless, again, like I said, you're doing some type of like random variety type of show, which usually those don't do as well as when you have a theme and people know what to expect and to rely on, right? And then finally, get clear on your key decisions about the show before you ever invite folks. Get clarity. Now, if you haven't already liked, subscribed, and followed wherever you're watching, whether it be LinkedIn, Substack, YouTube, or somewhere else, make sure you go ahead and do that, because I would love to stay in touch with you and stay connected. And if this was helpful at any time, if you got a golden nugget, pop your golden nugget into the chat. I want to know that one lesson, that one takeaway that you thought, this is a light bulb moment for me. If you got anything at all, put a light bulb emoji into the chat. I want to see that. Let me know. This has been so much fun, and thank you. Definitely make sure, like John said, to hit that like button. I appreciate you, John, for saying that. Smash it, as he said. I didn't fix that particular scene to make sure we made that look good, but smash the like button, as he said. If you are inclined to learn more, one of the things that I can tell you we're going to be doing in a couple weeks on the 15th and on the 19th is I'm going to be teaching a Cast Magic webinar that will be excellent to share with you more tips on what to do after the production of your video show. So if you're doing interview shows, if you're doing single or solo shows, you absolutely will want to come and hang out with us for the Cast Magic webinar. Let me make sure I type that in, because I didn't put it up, I don't think. And I haven't been good at doing this. Thankfully, I had Prema here. So thank you. Let me put it up real quick here on screen so that you know where to go. If you go to streamlikeaboss.tv and go to Cast Magic Webinar, This is a way for you to learn more. Let me make sure I open that up a little bit bigger here. This is a way for you to learn more about what we do after the video is produced and how we're repurposing this content so that it can be everywhere. I always hear this feedback from people that, hey, you're like everywhere. How do you do it? Well, I'm going to teach you how I do it using one of the apps that I use is called Cast Magic. And so I've had a lot of people that ended up purchasing Cast Magic as an AppSumo lifetime deal because I recommended it over the years. And they actually have a deal going on right now. If you want the link, feel free to shoot me a note and I'll send it to you. But they don't know how to fully use it to the max. And so in this class, we're going to be teaching exactly that. So I hope you'll come learn a little bit more about what to do after the workflows that we talked about tonight at the webinar for Cast Magic on the 15th and the 19th of April. So there's 2 different dates. You can just pick one. They'll both be the same. I look forward to seeing you there. And I look forward to seeing you back here in the stream on our regular date and time next Thursday. Okay? All right, folks. Thanks again for coming. And we'll see you next time.